And here we go. Today is December 29th, 2008. This is Deb Moore, and I'm interviewing William Boss. This interview is for the Grand Valley State University's Veterans History Project. Well, thanks for meeting with me today, Bill. The idea is to get as many interviews from as many veterans as possible. And I'm sorry, where did you hear about me? How did you?
From the Legion Club, Cascade Club is
Okay,
Legion.
okay, good. And why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your early life and background, where you grew up and went to school?
Okay, I was born in Cascade Township in September 18th, 1922.
Okay,
And I attended grade school, Martin School, down on Cascade Road. And that's as far as I went to school,
okay. So through 8th grade?
to 8th grade.
Through 8th grade, okay. And where was Martin School?
That was on Cascade Road, probably about, the number would be about 4,000, 4,800, something like that.
Okay. And you lived with your mom and dad?
My mom and dad and my brothers and sisters. We had a large family. At one time there was, well, some of them were married when this house was built, but the total family was 14 children.
Oh my word.
Yeah. Well, there's a story. Both my parents lost their mates, and my father had 4 children, my mother had 2, and then they had 8 together.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yes.
So there was a wide range of ages then?
Yes, there was.
For the kids, okay. Good. And your father was in the greenhouse business?
Yeah, well, at the farmers, and then we raised vegetables. So then we graduated to the greenhouse business because you had to start your transplants early, and then it went from there.
Okay. All right, good. So you went through the 8th grade, then you started working, or you'd always worked on the farm?
Well, I always worked on a farm, but my father was ill. And he did not work, so he could not work after he was 50 years old. So.
Okay. So you did more and more of the work then?
Yeah, I did more and more. Along with my mother and brothers and sisters.
Okay.
Everybody stayed pretty busy. They always had a lot of things to do on the farm.
Yeah, enough jobs for everyone. So tell me then, how did you end up in the Navy? Were you drafted? Did you, the war happen? How did that happen?
Well, the war started in '41, and of course all my friends went to service. They were drafted or enlisted. And I got farm deferments, which I was entitled to. So they got those of 6 months or a year at a time, and I had deferments and had no problem getting the deferments because the farm was productive enough to what we could do. So the last meeting at the draft board, that 2 of the board members were farmers, and they tried to talk me into staying home and doing my share at the home, but I just wanted, because everything, it was different. Your friends were all gone, all your close friends, and I just enlisted.
So you really wanted to join?
I really wanted to join, and I had my choice. At that time, you were drafted, but you could choose what branch of service you wanted to be. So I chose the Navy.
And what appealed to you about the Navy?
Because 2 of my very close friends were in the Navy, and I'd hear their stories, from their letters and stuff.
So where did you go? Did you go right away, or?
No, boot camp was in Great Lakes. That was in June of
44.
And right after boot camp, we left took a train to New York, and then was stationed at a Marine camp for 4 or 5 days at Little Beach, Long Island, New York. And from there we went to the ship, troop ship in
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about what was boot camp like.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great. I'll just do that from time to time. So tell me, what was boot camp like, Phil? What?
Boot camp for me was quite easy, except I didn't like all the, they'd make you do a lot of things like change your clothes 4 or 5 times a day because it was raining or the sun was shining too hot, and just to get you to probably to follow orders, without complaining. But boot camp was very easy for me.
Physically?
Physically and I didn't get homesick or anything like that, so it was easy.
And emotionally, I mean, they weren't. You didn't mind the discipline or the taking orders.
That was easy for me.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you get on a ship then. What was your ship?
Okay, from down, and I have to tell you about Lido Beach, New York. The war was, of course, that was in late '44 or in August of '44, and they marched us all down the main street of Lido Beach, and the whole town came. Well, mostly ladies and things that marched us down the main street, and both sides of the street was full of people.
To send you off?
To send us off. And some of them were emotional, and they would try, and I was on the outside, and they would come up and grab my hand or something like that, some of these ladies, and lots of tears there was from the civilians. And we were carrying our gas mask and our pack, everything all on our shoulders, But there we caught the ship at in the harbor there, and sailed off to down through the Panama Canal, and then ended up in New Hebrides, which is not that. They don't call that anymore. New Hebrides, it's some other name, but Espiritu Santo. That was the name of the town that we ended up on.
Okay, in the Hebrides.
In the Hebrides.
Okay.
And there I got my assignment.
Okay.
But one of the strange things that happened when we got aboard the troop ship, which was run by the English, I don't know how, Lend-Lease or something, but it was an English captain and crew, and we got to know some of the English people, things, but when we came aboard, being a farmer, they had this deck stacked full of potatoes and onions and carrots and different things, and we started out down through, and by the time we got to Panama Canal, well, there was still, all those vegetables were still on the deck outside, down in the refrigeration, all the warm weather and everything, they started to smell. And
Yeah.
To the end of the story, before the end of the journey, which took about 44 days, I think, we ran out of food. So we had bread and water for 12 days.
Oh my goodness. But why didn't they serve you the potatoes and the onions and the carrots before?
That's what I always thought, they went over the side. They had to throw away, they were spoiled. But therefore they didn't have on their menu or what, but anyway, so we...
It was a shame. 12 days, bread and water.
Being punished. So, then we another funny story about that, we stopped at a small island. So all the natives would come out to trade stuff.
Okay.
And they brought green bananas and coconuts, and the sailors were trading their stuff that would probably need later for the stuff. Anyway, long story of that, everybody got the dysentery.
Oh, no.
3,000 men on a ship.
Oh, no.
What a mess.
Oh, how awful.
Yeah, so that was one of the
What
things.
What might you have traded for bananas and coconuts?
Well, their blankets or whatever they had.
No? They didn't think
Not
they'd
me-
need their
not me.
blanket anymore?
I didn't do any of that stuff. I didn't like the look of the bananas. They were green, and coconuts would give you the dysentery too if you ate too much of it.
Mm-hmm.
So then they dropped us off there in Espiritu Santo, and there they had a Marine base,
Uh-huh.
and we got fed real good.
Did you?
Ate a
Good.
lot.
Good.
So,
You had to fatten back up.
yep.
Okay, good. Let's see. Is there a special unit you were in then, or?
Well, for the reason we were there, that was a place where they sent you to catch your whatever
main
ship
ship?
you were going to. So they
Mhm.
rationed. So we spent probably about 3 weeks there at on Espiritu Santo, and I was on our work crew one day doing something, and my name was called over the loudspeaker, and said to the other guys, I didn't do nothing, why are they calling me on? So I got to visit with a commanding officer. They were there a long time, so they raised a lot of their own vegetables and things, the commanding officer and plus a couple of the fellow officers, and it was a big compound, fenced in.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me a bunch of questions and he wanted to raise some lettuce, and he couldn't find the right one to grow on that climate down there. And he said his tomatoes were spoiling on the ground and things like that. So he took me out and showed me this garden, and I said, well, your tomatoes should be on a trellis or some kind of a thing, but we can build something with screen. And anyway, he said, and I got 3 horses, they need exercise and stuff. You need any help, why, you can go get somebody else to help you. Well, I was delighted to do all those things, and I fixed them. And,
Great.
but the funny part is I saddled up one of the horses and I rode it downtown to where all my guys were working. And that was a real fast go. You get to ride a horse, we got to shovel dirt.
Well, your expertise came in handy there.
Yes, and anyway, from there, we were assigned to 4 of the guys from. I didn't know any of those people there. I wasn't in boot camp with them. They were in the camp above us.
Okay.
And we caught our ship.
And what was that called?
The PCS 1402. It's a small little.
Okay.
I have a picture of it someplace I can show you.
Okay.
But and from there
And how many of you were on that ship?
there were 4 of the new recruits, but the ship total was 60 people.
Okay, so it was a small ship.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And the main duties of that was for submarine, looking for submarines all the time. When you weren't, when it was time to go into battle, then you took on, because we didn't draw much water, we could get right up close to shore. Some of the Army people, high ranking, usually a general, would come aboard, and then we would go up and the D-Day would do that. Would be initial, the start of the battle, and direct and things how things went.
Okay, because like you said, you could get in very shallow with that
very
boat.
shallow, right up close.
Any famous generals that you took up to shore?
Pardon?
Any famous generals or any generals you remember their names?
Just the four thing. And it was my duty when the ships came along beside of our ship to keep them from bumping up against together, and I had to, they call them bumpers for things that were just made out of rope, big heavy rope to keep the ships in. And so this general gets off and he salutes me, and I got my hands full. So what am I going to do? So I just said, "Welcome aboard, sir."
Right. I imagine he could see you had your hands tied.
Yeah.
Now, who taught you how to do that job? Was that a big training thing, or?
Well, the rest of the people, on the existing crew taught you how to
do your job.
What you had to do. And they assigned me to the work with the gun crew.
Okay.
Take care of the guns and do
Like
that.
keep them clean and oiled?
Cleaned and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
painted and so on and so
Mhm.
forth.
Mm-hmm. Did you find any submarines?
No, we never dropped it anywhere. The crew always said the captain was afraid to, but
He was trying to avoid the submarine?
yeah, I talked to my friend who was a submarine sailor, and he said, "Well, you were just lucky he was chicken because they would have come up above and blew you out of water so fast." There was no.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Did that happen a lot? Did you hear about other ships of your size with the same mission you had?
yeah, it did. Yeah.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
But the enemy, the Japanese, usually knew who they were. You know what their target was before.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had if they showed you or were watching you, you know, through the periscope, which you didn't see, why?
It was over.
Pardon?
Then they would have
Yeah,
blown
then they
up your
would.
ship.
If they got hit or something, weren't quite that they could just rise and you know.
Right, right. So you're all in the Pacific Ocean there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Out in the middle of the ocean?
Yes. Oh well, you got assigned. Our ship went to first to the Guadalcanal, which was secure at that time, and stayed there for a couple of months, just patrolling and all day and night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and from there we went to. There we went to in January of '45, we were up the Philippines for the Philippine liberation.
Oh, were you? Okay. What do you remember about that?
Well, we didn't really see much of that because our ship didn't see. We're there doing our duty and doing the patrol.
Offshore.
Nothing happened. No, yeah, offshore.
Right.
And nothing really came of that. So.
Okay. Okay. Then what'd you do?
Then the next, and the thing from, you had to go, you know, you hit different islands around where you patrolled around, and once in a while you'd have to get in and take on supplies.
Oh, right.
And from there we went to, in Okinawa was, that's D-Day, it was April 1st of '45. And that's when we had to put the, you know, watch the troops go ashore, and that was for us. I didn't know until later on that there was two invasions on Okinawa at exactly the same day at the same time.
Oh, there were.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Marines were on one side, and the 10th Army, what we put on was on the other side. I didn't know that till a long, long time later.
Okay.
And
So could
of
you?
course, lots of you know, activity going on in an invasion with airplanes and stuff, and you were busy, you know, manning the guns, and something had to come along. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, so your ship was actually firing on the island?
Enemy planes, and then we would have to, well, it didn't all happen when we were there 3 months for Okinawa, I think, a long, long time. It's on my card or something. Lots of things happened there.
Okay. Well, right, and said that you earned the Bronze Star there.
Yeah, that you get for each battle, you get an invasion, you get a Bronze Star. See, that's the things.
Okay.
Some of the guys had some of the guys in our ship had 3 or 4 of them, you know, over different islands. I also worked at in Saipan for quite a while, but I wasn't there on D-Day, so then you weren't there long enough to get the star. There had to be so many days in that area or something before you were required those.
But so you would get your ship got the notice that the Japanese planes would be coming overhead. How did that happen?
Either we were watching someplace, but at one time, when because we were so small, they thought we couldn't do anything on it, so they'd have different controls that they sent out. That's what you could shoot at anything in the sky or whatever. And one time things were going on, and we were shooting on some of the. Most of the times, the planes were way too far. There would be dogfights up above there, but you would with the Americans and the Japanese, but our guns couldn't reach up.
Okay, so your ship never shot anybody out of the sky.
Yes, we did. We were at one time they said the flashlight control yellow was to shoot anything in the sky. Well, and my gun station was on a 40 millimeter. That was that where I was. That was a 3-man crew.
Okay.
And they said bogey at 3 o'clock. That was a bogey was something. I sort of looked around and looked at it. Yeah. And we had this right to shoot anything in the sky. I'd swing around and look at that, and I said, well, that's our planes. And so
I was going to say, yeah.
And so that fellow came along and right over top of us, and that was a torpedo dive bomber, so it was easy recognizable. You could easily recognize that plane. That was one of ours, and they came in right over, and so everybody quit shooting and finally. And I talked to that fellow later because I happened to met him on the Scud, on the pilot, and he said, it's the 3rd time I've been shot down by friendly fire. So that's how the war went, different things.
So it was a good thing that you used your brains instead of following the orders.
Training,
Right. And was that part of the training? Like, if you see that the order was wrong, use your...
You had to identify the planes. They just taught you that time after, this and that and that. It's just
Right.
And one time, one of those Japanese Zeros, kamikazes, come after us and picked us out, the little ship out of
all
my ships. And
right.
that was very, very close.
Wow.
And I think one of the rounds from one of our gun hit one of his bombs, and he about 300 yards back, he disintegrated.
Did he? Wow. So was your...
So that's the closest we...
That was your closest...
With the airplane. One time bombs just missed us. But,
That's scary too.
And another time, and before I was aboard the ship, they, I think 8 of the crew members got Purple Hearts because the bombs splattered all around us. We'd lost no people.
So was your ship one of a little group of ships that were together?
Well,
at that point,
they would call them convoys,
And how many ships in a convoy?
Oh gosh, when you were in Okinawa, there were just hundreds.
Hundreds. Okay. Okay. Good. Did you get any off base time? Any liberty at all?
At one time, we went to New Caledonia. That's a French possession over near someplace between New Zealand and Australia. Kind of close to both of those. That was a French colony. There's a French prison colony. Originally, the French set all their prisons over there, and then they hung on and went on.
What was there to do on Liberty?
You could go. The first thing we went to was wanted to get some ice cream. So we asked somebody where the
ice cream parlor.
Ice cream parlor was, and they sent us to the bakery because they didn't understand us. They're all French people, so and some of the guys would head for the bars and get something to drink. And my friend and I did that a couple of times, and then the third time, the bartenders, they served us some horrible stuff, and so we said, well, this place is kind of
icky,
not a good place, so let's go back. And once you got back up to the pickup station that you got inside of a gate, and then you could sit there and wait till your taxi came, or water taxi came back and picked you up. So
Okay, okay.
we were, my friend and I, who was a little French boy, we were up there for a long time, so.
Uh-huh.
To get in here. A lot of the other guys had to go back and get picked up from the captain or the Gazette officer the next day, because they just picked them up and threw them in jail.
Okay, for staying out too long?
No, for getting drunk.
Oh. And then they'd sober up and then,
Yeah, well, then you come back and everything. But those guys, that was the first time some of those people had been off that ship for 18 months.
wow. Wow.
And that's
They went a little crazy, huh?
yeah.
Can't blame them.
Well,
How about you? What's the longest you were on the ship?
well, I had that. I had only been on the ship probably been 6 months then. At that time.
Still, I mean, was everybody getting a little stir crazy, a little too close quarters with the same people for?
Exactly.
Mhm.
The same way. Anybody over 35 didn't handle it.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
So it was easier for the younger people.
Yeah, very rough. And then in that period, one time we went through that very nasty typhoon. And it was in June of 44, I guess.
No.
I got that date wrong, but anyway,
Okay.
it was one of those real nasty ones. Our ship went through 3 typhoons, one at sea with the whole convoy, and
How did you survive that?
that was the only time I really thought I was going to die on that ship, because it got so rough. And we were built to take 45-degree rolls, but the one fellow was reading those rolls. We were going 50, 51, like that's laying on your side. And I always got seasick, horribly seasick.
Uh-huh.
And a typhoon is like a hurricane, because it starts and it gets, when you think it's going to get better, it gets much worse, and then the waves are tremendous, and so I had to go up and relieve my stomach, so because
Right.
I was the ship. Same time the ship took a roll, and I dropped it was right off the where we ate, where the we ate our dinner down.
Mm-hmm.
And the starboard side was the lee side. The wind was not there. So
Uh-huh.
Like-
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
my son Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
So the ship's doing this big roll. You're trying
This
to.
roll, I'm trying to puke, and I thought that was it, because I really did. And,
Yeah. Yeah. You thought you're just
When I
gonna go
get back-
over and.
Yeah, and when it came back up, there was what they call a freeboard is about that high, and then a big pipe, big stand there. I had to hold of that, and this radar man in there was sitting there. He was always a joker. He said, "Well, that's the first time everybody gets sick and his mouth washed off at the same time." He laughed like crazy. I didn't think it was funny at all.
Terrible.
Yeah,
So that was the scariest thing.
that was one of the scariest. When the kamikaze came after us, I was not frightened at all. Just
Okay.
did my job.
Okay. Okay. But that typhoon. Well, forces of nature will do that.
And then there were 2 more typhoons in Okinawa after the war, and one of them took a lot of lives. That was in Buckner Bay. They got an
Buckner
awful lot-
Bay?
Buckner Bay.
Okay.
That took a lot of lives.
Okay.
The ships was just coming.
Of Navy personnel.
Navy personnel, they drag anchors, and the ships. There were so many ships in the harbor, and it wasn't that big,
Right. Oh boy. Well, that was hard to see. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your living conditions, or your bunk, or what did you have? Where did you sleep on the
Well,
ship?
we had The bunks were 3 high. They had 3. They slept in the midsection of the ship and in the bow of the ship. They had 2 bunks, and the officers had their own one right in the middle of the ship too. And there was 5 officers on board.
Okay, and what about eating then? Did you all eat together at the mess hall, or?
Different sections, because the ship was set into, starboard and two ship down the half. One half had to do this, one half.
Right,
that.
so somebody's always manning the ship.
Somebody was always manning the ship.
What was the food like?
If you like weevils in your bed with bread, you have lots of that. If you like spaghetti 21 meals in a row.
Yeah, I bet you haven't eaten spaghetti since.
I have only a little bit. Once in a while now I eat it. I think for 30 years I never touched it.
Oh boy.
And you couldn't go around next door to get something.
Right.
There.
Yeah.
That was when we was around the Solomon Islands. We spent a long time around in Tulagi. We spent a lot of time there, just patrolling.
What about when you were off duty, Bill? Did you guys play cards or watch movies, or what? Did you have any fun at all?
Some of the guys once in a while played cards, and on Guadalcanal we could go to at that time it was all secure. We could go watch movies there. If we came in to get fueled up or something, and then you would stay overnight, and you could have the ship would stay overnight, and some of the guys could go watch movies if you want.
Okay.
Our ship wasn't big enough to have any movie screens or anything like that. It wasn't. And we didn't have all the Navy rigmarole. What we were kind of free because you were so small.
Right. So you had a little more freedom than you think others did.
We had all the protocol you didn't have to follow.
Okay.
Like if you was on a cruiser or a battle wagon, you had to be, different.
But I mean, so was it boring when you weren't working? I mean, was there anything to do?
No, it was not. The only time it was boring was after the war.
Okay. What happened?
There was always something to do. You had to be working all the time.
So you weren't just on an 8-hour shift.
Watch, you had when you were underway, you had 4 to 8, or 12 to 4, and then 4 to 8, and then they called the watch starboard and port. See, that's what the section you're in, and that's how your watches went. And everybody had to be, when the ship was underway, everybody had to be manned in their stations. My station was with one of the other gunner mates back watching for, just looking out in the, in the skies, watching and listening. And one of those nights, we had the 12 to 4, and probably about 3 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden you've seen these little star illuminations, on 4th of July or something. They drop the lights, come down, and here there's 4 of those came up there, just off from to our starboard, which is to the right side, come down, and not 2 seconds later, 3 bombs exploded about 100 yards to our port. Well, I think those planes, when you're underway, the water makes the fluorescent things, and I think that nobody heard that plane. Or the radar didn't pick it up.
Isn't that something? Couldn't hear it, you couldn't see it.
The ship rolled,
Did that wake up the people who were sleeping?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, you talk about, there's funny things happen on a board ship too, because one time it was, we were on the watch, Pickering and I, he was my fellow, the call come down from the bridge, all hands on deck and put on life jackets. It was rough, but not that rough,
Uh-huh.
So call back up to that bridge and find out if that's the correct order. Something, that's correct, that's what you, something that's got kind of a smart remark. So
right.
one of us had to go down and get one of the other fellows that was a little bit charged on the ship, boats, and I was still not an officer, but had to go around and wake everybody up, put on life jackets, and finally they got to the officers and said, "What the is going on here?" And these guys were all mumbling like crazy, you know. It's at 3 o'clock in the morning. And the order was wrong. It said all hands on duty put on life jackets. You know? So that got over that.
Right.
You say different things, you know.
Sure. Sure.
Things never really got born. There was always something.
Always something to
different.
do. Okay.
And once in a while they had some recreation islands that you could go around Guadalcanal and Talaga. You could go there and play ball and spend the afternoon, you know, or whatever.
Oh, that's good.
And then there was another island, Magmag they called that. That was all put up for recreation. The guys could go over there and spend the day.
Oh, that was nice.
And they could get some beer if they wanted it. It wasn't very warm, cold, but.
You knew what was in it at least.
So.
So how often?
And a lot of times, you know, there things would happen. You were sitting in the, maybe something in the area that wasn't right, and they'd call you, bring the general quarters up, and sometimes you sat there just a little while, manning your gun. So one time we shot 36 hours on the gun. 36 hours.
Oh, that was grueling. Yeah.
So they brought us our lunch, and if we had to pee or something, we had to get excused for a minute.
Right. Yeah.
36 hours on a metal ship seat was not.
No.
But nothing happened.
So nothing happened. That was the good news.
Yeah, that was the good news.
Oh boy. Yeah. And how did for the most part, how did all the guys, your 60 people, get along together?
Very good. For the most part. There was people you didn't like and you avoided, or you had stinkers that you know that you'd,
were trying to cause trouble, or
we had one though, and when we were tied up, then you had to stand guard. Tied up, that's on shore where you were, you know, and then you had a man that come in and everybody had their, not everybody, but most of the people had a turn duty was that, see, especially if you were in a town or something like that.
Okay.
Not in a town, but on an island where other people could come aboard. You gotta keep track of who came and went. See,
yeah. So you became pretty close with, made some good friends on board?
One of my friends was from Kalamazoo, and the other one I just talked to him Sunday.
Really? Oh, that's nice.
And that one, we have been to all their kids' weddings, they've been to our kids' weddings, we've been back and forth. And
oh, that's nice.
Life, you get so close because actually if you know, there's just something there when you're in combat together,
right.
You just can't,
how
close you can be.
Yeah, that's great. So when you were aboard ship, Bill, did you have much news about what was going on, the progress of the war as a whole? Did you feel like you knew?
Not really. You get some things. Mail call would come, and if the mail would come on. Usually, when we came to another ship or something, or in a town or a base, they would pick up mail. Then everything came. You know, to everybody went and sat, and if you were not, you know, under general quarters or something, everybody just read their mail and sat. Everything was quiet for a long time.
Yeah. So how often did you get mail?
Well, that depends where you got, you know, what things you were in. So.
I mean, it could be a week, it could be a month.
Oh, it could be 2 months.
Really? And so did you write a lot of letters home?
Not a lot. A few.
You think your mom was worried about you?
My mother was worried. I could always feel my mother's presence.
Did you have other brothers in the service?
One brother went through the Battle of the Bulge.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And he made it okay?
Yeah, he had lots. That's ground fighting. That's a whole lot. That's a lot of. It's not. War is not fun. Not
No.
Nice.
No. So you were always happy with your decision to join the Navy?
Yes, I was.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it'd be doubt I could be doing a lot more at home. Sometimes you did nothing for days, and nothing. If there wasn't any action going on or something, a lot of times, hurry up and wait. That's the Navy's slogan.
Right.
And sometimes we had to work long hours if you had to put ammunition on or something like that.
And if you wanted to read books or magazines, did you have any access to those?
There were books, a few. Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Let's see, what else should we know?
Because we were so small, we just didn't have all those other privileges,
I know it. I'm just wondering if there was a library, like when you got off the ship at that place where you said you could have recreation.
If there was, I never, it was just, a place to play ball and catch and do this and then run around, just sit, would be off the ship for a little bit.
Yeah. Did you exercise on the ship?
I got plenty of exercise doing the things I
Did
had
you?
to do. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. There was always painting and cleaning to do with the guns. So they needed a lot of upkeep.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Did you ever go to a USO show? Nothing, no entertainment like that.
No.
Okay. Okay. So you kept going. Any other stops that you made? Any other islands you went to that you didn't mention?
Not in line of service or action or anything. Well, there was around Okinawa there was a couple of smaller islands that we had to go in and secure.
Okay.
And those were actually worse than D-Day on Okinawa. 2 other islands.
Were they?
Yeah.
In what way?
The one thing, that's where I first saw my fellow soldiers die,
That's hard, yeah.
They were all going ashore and the Japanese had it all mined and they touched it off and
Yeah,
just a lot of people died.
yeah, yeah.
And then we withdrew from that place to that one particular.
Okay. Rather than lose more lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think that was the hardest thing you had to see?
Well, it was tough.
Yeah. So now I see that you were discharged in April of 1946. What led up to that?
Well, the war was over,
Mm-hmm.
and then the war ended on August 9th or 13th in August, I think, of 45, something like that, was at Okinawa.
Uh-huh.
And that's when you saw the most fireworks I ever saw in my whole life. Some of the ships would just celebrate and they went out, shot all the...
All the ammunition?
Oh, yeah. They were all... every third round what you had was a tracer, see, so you just lit up the sky.
Okay, so they use those as fireworks.
Everybody did. We didn't do that. We were a little bit... You're not supposed to just... you let your emotions get away, and then whoever the captain was or something. We had a tough captain, so he didn't.
He put a little clamp on that, huh?
And well, some people actually got hurt,
Yeah.
lost their lives
Right.
because they celebrated
Yeah.
much.
Oh, yeah. So do you remember how you heard? How did you get the news that the war was over?
Oh, there was.
Over the loudspeaker, or?
You speak of entertainment. We always listened to Sally. What was her name? The Japanese.
Oh yeah, Sally Rand.
What was her name, Dorothy? You heard me tell me about that.
You mean Rosie?
Yeah, Rosie.
Uh-huh.
Tokyo Rose.
Oh, Tokyo Rose.
Yeah.
Over the radio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, all you sailors they're going into Okinawa tomorrow, because they knew we were coming to
Uh-huh.
make good God soldiers, as she said. No, she was, since she had a really smooth, seductive voice, you know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we always got the radio on her, and you got things, and we could get some receptions, but the news came over, you know, pretty good. So
Yeah, I'm not sure. Was Tokyo Rose a Japanese?
yes,
Okay.
she was American Japanese.
Okay,
Born in
so
America.
you knew what she said was the truth?
Well, no, we knew she was. Some of it was lying.
Oh, okay. So you had to filter that.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. But she was entertaining.
yeah.
Okay.
She was entertaining.
And is that how you got the news about the end of the war?
No, not that. It was someplace from some of the, you know, our ship didn't get there, but there were other. We all had a lot of larger cruisers, and always had a lot of different cruisers around when
Uh-huh.
they were the next down the line from the battleships, but they had a lot of different things on the.
Uh-huh.
Or carriers or something like that. They had a lot of communication things.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get physically? How did you get discharged? Did they sail you back to California or?
No, we got to go. After the war, then things got different. So then we had to go back to, headed back to, from Okinawa we went to Guam.
Okay.
And that's where I met my very best friend, sailor.
Uh-huh.
That was the submarine guy. He came into the